It was one of those cold mornings that felt heavier than usual. The kind where the sky stayed gray, and the world moved fast, but your heart just couldn't keep up. People rushed past each other, eyes glued to their phones, carrying invisible burdens no one else could see. And right there, in the middle of all that noise, one small act of kindness quietly changed 2 lives forever, maybe even more. Before we begin, if stories like this touch your heart, take a moment to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us spread more kindness stories just like this one. Emma Parker sat in her car outside a small coffee shop in Chicago, gripping the steering wheel tighter than she needed to. Her eyes were tired not just from lack of sleep, but from life itself. 3 months ago, she lost her job. 2 weeks ago, her landlord gave her a final notice. And that morning, she had exactly $12 left in her bank account. She looked at the coffee shop sign and sighed. "I shouldn't," she whispered to herself. But something inside her needed a moment of comfort, even if it cost her a few dollars she couldn't afford. Inside, the shop was warm and smelled like fresh coffee beans and cinnamon. It felt like a different world, one where problems paused at the door. Emma stepped in line, quietly counting her money again, just to be sure. When it was her turn, she ordered the smallest coffee on the menu. "That'll be $3.75, the cashier said with a polite smile. Emma nodded, pulling out her crumpled bills. As she handed over the money, she noticed a man behind her in line. He looked older, maybe in his late 60s, wearing a worn-out jacket and holding a small paper bag. His hands trembled slightly, and his eyes looked tired, but kind. Emma didn't think much of it at first. She took her coffee and stepped aside. "Ma'am," the cashier called out again. "The gentleman behind you just paid for your coffee." Emma turned, confused. "Wait, what?" The older man smiled gently. "You looked like you needed it more than I do." Emma blinked, caught off guard. "But you didn't have to do that." He shrugged. "Sometimes, we all need a little help. Today it's you. Tomorrow it might be me." She didn't know what to say. A stranger had just spent his own money on her, money he probably needed just as much. "Thank you," she finally said, her voice soft. He nodded and stepped forward to place his order, as if what he'd done was no big deal at all. Emma sat down at a small table by the window, staring at her coffee. Something about that moment stayed with her. It wasn't just the free coffee, it was the feeling that someone had seen her, truly seen her, on a day when she felt invisible. She watched as the man received his order, just a plain cup of hot water. No coffee. No food. Her heart sank. Without thinking too much, Emma stood up and walked back to the counter. "Excuse me," she said to the cashier. "Can I add a sandwich and a real coffee for that man?" The cashier smiled knowingly. "Of course." Emma paid with what little she had left. As she handed the items to the man, he looked surprised. "You didn't have to do that," he said, echoing her own words from minutes ago. Emma smiled. "I know. But I wanted to." They sat together for a while, talking like old friends. His name was Walter. He had been a school bus driver for over 30 years before retiring. After his wife passed away, things got harder. Medical bills piled up, and eventually he lost his home. "But I still believe in people," Walter said, sipping his coffee slowly. "There's always kindness out there, you just have to look for it." Emma felt something shift inside her. For weeks, she had been drowning in her own struggles, convinced that the world was cold and unfair. But here was this man, who had less than her, still choosing kindness. Before they parted ways, Walter reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. "What's this?" Emma asked. "An address," he said. "It's a community center a few blocks from here. They helped me when I needed it. Maybe they can help you too." Emma hesitated, then took the paper. "Thank you." That afternoon, with nothing to lose, she decided to go. The community center was simple, nothing fancy. But inside, it was full of life, people helping people, sharing meals, offering support. Emma spoke with a coordinator who listened to her story without judgment. Within a week, Emma had a temporary job helping organize events at the center. It wasn't much, but it was a start. More importantly, it gave her purpose again. Days turned into weeks, and Emma began to rebuild her life. She found a small apartment, started saving money, and even made new friends. But she never forgot Walter. Every morning, she went to the same coffee shop, hoping to see him again. Sometimes he was there, sometimes he wasn't. But whenever he was, they would sit together, talk, and share stories. One day, Emma had an idea. "What if we started something here?" she said, pointing around the coffee shop. "Like a pay-it-forward board. People can buy a coffee or a meal for someone in need." Walter smiled. "I like that." They spoke to the shop owner, who loved the idea. Within days, a small board appeared near the counter. People started leaving notes. "Coffee for someone who needs a smile, meal for a stranger, you're not alone." It started small, but it grew. Soon, other shops in the area joined in. Then other neighborhoods. What began as one small act of kindness turned into a movement. Months later, Emma stood in front of a room full of volunteers at the community center. She was no longer the woman sitting in her car with $12 to her name. She was stronger, more hopeful, and deeply grateful. "All of this," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "started with a cup of coffee. One person choosing to be kind, even when he didn't have much to give." She looked over at Walter, sitting in the front row, smiling proudly. "That one moment changed my life," she continued. "And now, it's changing others." After the event, Emma walked outside with Walter. "You know," she said, "you always say that kindness comes back around." Walter chuckled softly. "It does." Emma looked at him. "Then I guess this is it. It came back to you too." Walter nodded. "Maybe. But the truth is, kindness doesn't need a reward. The act itself is enough." Emma smiled, understanding now. Life didn't suddenly become perfect for either of them. There were still hard days, still struggles. But something had changed. They no longer felt alone. They knew that even the smallest act, something as simple as buying a stranger a cup of coffee, could ripple out in ways they could never imagine. And that's the thing about kindness. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to cost a lot. It just has to be real. Because somewhere out there, someone is having the kind of day Emma had. Someone is sitting in their car, feeling lost, unseen, and overwhelmed. And maybe, just maybe, your small act of kindness could be the thing that changes everything for them. So the next time you have a chance, hold the door open, share a smile, lend a hand, or buy that extra cup of coffee. You never know whose life you might touch. And in the end, kindness has a beautiful way of finding its way back to you. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to, like this video, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. And tell us in the comments, what's one act of kindness you'll do this week? Because the world needs more kindness. And it can start with you.